Hey everybody, Bandicoot Commando here, and welcome back to Marvel Rivals. Got to cough slightly. Last time, I read Elsa Bloodstone's lore story. Special delivery, where basically the story was a twofer, basically. The first half of it more or less explained, like, the whole situation of how, Deadpool unleashing all of the creatures in the collector's collection, and then how Deadpool ended up being impregnated by the Brood Queen. But thanks to his healing factor, it's on the Brood Queen's process of creating more brood was not able to affect Deadpool. But still, with him being impregnated, Elsa had to cut him open to allow the broodling to come out. Despite this, though, the broodling immediately took a liking to Deadpool and saw him as the parent. And it's from here that Elsa had a flashback on how she got here, how she came from the collapsed timeline where gods and monsters are at war, and how even a seasoned hunter as herself had really no chance against the hordes of the supernatural, and she retreated to her family home. But to make matters worse, her brother Colin was dealing with a Glartrox that had taken over him, but that's when they both received a visitor in the form of Thor. Thor was able to help Elsa expel the Glartrox from Colin's body, and she was able to capture it. Then, after Thor recovered fully, he and Elsa went out to basically, monster hunting, going after monsters and demons and such. But after one particular hunt where they killed two demons in combat, but it turns out that those two demons fighting one another was more or less to prevent a village from being destroyed. This really shook Elsa to her core and would go against all of her beliefs and teachings that her father had drilled into her. But after that, Elsa sees that yes, all the monsters do deserve second chances and that they can be people too. And she decides that Deadpool's the best choice to be their leader and that they can find a place to call home. But that's when we get to the gallery. The gallery images will explain that better. So today, we got some more lore to read. So I had to do a double check to make sure that there was any additional lore, and there is. There's only one. Mantis. Alright, I hate to briefly do this, but I need to see, because as always, whenever I do these, especially if it's like a new lore from a new character, I always need to see, like, what was the last set of costumes I had. So what was the last set of costumes I showed off as Mantis before I got the new ones? Nope, that's when I did matches. Iron Fist, Loki, Luna, Magneto. Here she is. This had to have been back in yeah, this was back in season 1. So that means I did not have any of her skins probably. Come on, me. Get to the point already with this. I only had... Okay, so at the time When I recorded Mantis's lore, I only had 2 of her skins available, and I already went over them. I only had the galactic wings and her appearance from Guardians 3. So let's go over the new stuff I bought since then. Yeah, I don't have her gladiator outfit yet, but hey. So, Nowhere Corp. Space Corps? We're in space. You don't have to call everything out here space something. Ah, her swimsuit one. Hey there, little crab. Hey there, little shell. Hey there, little sea snake. Ben! Your cannonball scared him away! This is going on way longer than it should. There we go. Man, isn't it ironic that the character who is meant to be like the most wholesome and non-sexualized is given at least one outfit that is pretty skimpy. Anyway, Flora Maiden. The moment Mantis set foot on Krakoa, the living island responded instantly. Vines coiled around her limbs, and flowers blossomed on her skin, as if the island's biosphere had become her new epidermis. Her white eyes shimmered with an unprecedented radiance. She had transformed into the floral maiden of Krakoa. From what I'm told, I don't know how true this is, but these yellow bits on her, they're said to be eyeballs of Krakoa itself, which I find that weird and hard to believe. The Jade Maiden. At the precipice of Kunlun resides a spiritual prodigy, garbed in green akin to jade, hair flowing like clouds, a master of martial arts, wielding fists as mighty as a dragon. Each movement is a dance surrounded by spiritual energy, revered by all living beings. And yes, Mantis is a martial arts expert. Wait, what am I doing? I need to... Alright, here we are. So we've been through this. Now, for the second lore story, Growing Together. Oh, hang on. I'm scratching my part of me real quick. Alright. I am Groot, the giant tree-like alien said, an air of concern noticeable in his deep voice. You can say that again, Pally, Rocket responded, frantically checking the readouts on the dashboard of the Milano, the signature spacecraft of the Guardians of the Galaxy. According to these readings, we're totally flarked. The Guardians were part of a larger contingency of heroes who had come to this strange world on the edge of time and space to help liberate the innocent creatures being held captive by the Elder of the Universe called the Collector. Okay, so this one is following up on, like... Because Mantis kept saying how she wants to come back to the museum and free the creatures, but thanks to Deadpool, I wonder how this is going to turn out. It was a mission that was particularly important to Mantis, a member of the Guardian's crew who had until recently found herself caught in the Collector's clutches, forced to fight for her very survival. Cosmo, no doubt. Why aren't we taking off yet, Rocket? Mantis asked with a sense of urgency. There's some kind of invisible wall surrounding this entire world, Rocket said. It wasn't there before, which makes me think one of the cosmic creepers who run the place must be pretty angry. And after that heist Gambit and his crew pulled in the Collector's gallery, I bet I know who. So, we're trapped here? Mantis asked, the slightest hint of panic showing through her usual calm demeanor. "Afraid so," Rocket replied. "At least until I can figure out a way to breach the barrier without killing us all in the process. Give me, I don't know, like 20 minutes, and we'll see what I can do." "We may not have to wait that long," Mantis said, as she gazed out of the Milano's cockpit window toward the Collector's massive museum in the distance. She knew all too well the horrors that still lurked inside, and while she was proud that she had found the strength to return and free so many others like her who had been unjustly detained, the thought of being reclaimed by the Collector once again had haunted her since her first escape. The things he had forced her to do, to harm others in the arena for the amusement of his wealthy spectators, went against everything that she believed in. Mantis celebrated life, something the Collector had little respect for. When Mantis stepped out of the Milano to get some fresh air, she saw something she hadn't noticed earlier while she was fleeing the Collector's gallery toward the Guardian's escape vessel. She looked in disbelief at the Grand Garden, or at least what was left of it. When the Guardians had first arrived in this cosmic realm, this massive green space was overgrown with rare forms of foliage that had been gathered from across the universe. But now, all that was left were withered husks, charred stems, as if all the life had been drained from the lush landscape. Mantis tried to hold back her tears as she took in the devastation, but another figure nearby was not making any effort to contain their emotions. "The mortals did this," the elder, known as the gardener, yelled in rage as he knelt on the barren ground at the center of his grand garden, a handful of scorched soil stifling through his ancient fingers. "To be fair," a voice whispered into Mantis's ear, "some of us happen to be immortal and quite proud of it." She turned to see Loki, the god of mischief and the current ruler of the mythical realm of Yggdrasil, standing by her side. He too gazed out at the grieving gardener with curiosity. "We should help him," Mantis said. "The loss he has suffered is unimaginable." "His plants died," Loki scoffed. "I am certain he will recover. To a being who has devoted his entire existence to cultivating flora," Mantis said, "it must be as if he lost his own children." "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" Loki asked with a raised eyebrow. "You would know," Mantis said with a slight smile. She and Loki had fought side by side in countless battles across the Chronoverse, and they had found that, despite their inherently opposite natures, at one point they were remarkably alike. They were both always true to themselves. Oh, wait a minute, we're gonna get more of the Loki shipping with Mantis? Which is, oh boy, I need to know now. "Fair enough," Loki said, bowing his head slightly to show his respect for Mantis. "Shall we see if we can ease his pain, and perhaps earn his favor?" The unlikely pair walked toward the gardener, who turned to them with unbridled fury in his eyes the moment he sensed their presence. "You brought this destruction to these sacred grounds," he snarled. "Actually," Loki replied snidely, "it was the mutants, specifically the one named Rogue. She managed to escape, but I'm sure she couldn't have gotten too far. Perhaps if we—" "Silence!" the gardener snapped back. "I do not care which of you is to blame. All I care is that my grand garden is restored to its former glory, and none shall leave this place until that task is complete, even if it takes all of eternity." "So, you're the one that put up that barrier?" Mantis asked, almost relieved by the realization. Not the Collector? The Collector and the Grandmaster are at odds yet again, the gardener said with disdain. They are likely locked in some foolish contest to prove who is to blame for all that unfolded here. It could last decades. If we're lucky, Loki muttered under his breath. I can help you, Mantis said to the gardener. I have a way with plants, too. They tend to listen to me. Who can blame them, Loki said with a flirtatious smile. And if Lady Mantis chooses to aid your cause, Elder, then Lord Loki does as well. Mantis sat in the center of the grand garden and closed her eyes, concentrating deeply. She reached out with her powers, trying to communicate with any remaining vegetation in the area. But unfortunately, not even the slightest sprout remained. As she opened her eyes, she let out an expectorated gasp. She couldn't remember feeling this hopeless before, even when she was trapped behind glass in the Collector's gallery. That wasn't a promising reaction, Loki said, reaching up to touch his own forehead. A rare moment of serious contemplation. My healing powers are potent, Mantis said, but true resurrection is beyond my reach. I can't help life flourish once more in a place where there is no life left. That does sound rather bleak, Loki said, but perhaps all we need is a change in our approach, or our tune. As he spoke, Loki reached up and grabbed a hold one of the golden horns on his helmet. With a sharp pull, he snapped the horn off at its base. After casting a quick incantation, Loki raised the horn to his lips and blew into it, producing a tone that echoed across the Elder's realm. Not a perfect performance, Loki said, upon lowering the horn from his lips, but it should get the job done. And what job is that? Mantis asked, her gaze fixed on the golden horn. Have you ever heard of the Galera horn? I think that's how you pronounce it. Loki asked. It is a mighty instrument that is blown to alert the gods when Ragnarok begins. Not the most pleasant thing to listen to, if you ask me, but it always does the trick. Yet, in my studies of ancient Asgardian magic, I have learned that different notes have different effects. Instead of calling my fellow gods just now, I have instead summoned forth the essence of Yggdrasil itself. A mere hint of the World Tree's power should have this wasteland back in full bloom ere long. Just as Loki promised, the ground of the Grand Garden began to tremble and shift. Vines and stems ruptured forth, but instead of glorious green, each of these new sprouts emerged in a grim gray. Your magic seems to have missed the mark, the gardener said, clearly unimpressed. You may have managed to bring back my plants in body, but not in spirit. What is that old fool blathering about? Loki asked Mantis quietly, offended by the gardener's lack of appreciation. He acts as if these seedlings should have souls. Every living thing has a soul, Mantis said, plant and animal alike. Just because something isn't sentient in the ways that we define, it doesn't mean it can't feel. Well, if I learned anything from that duplicitous witch Hela, Loki said, it is that the barrier between life and death is far thinner than most mortals realize. You're right, Mantis said. I can journey to the astral plane to seek out these lost souls, but when I find them, I will need your help to guide them back from the beyond. I shall be honored to serve as your anchor, Loki said, offering Mantis his hand, and theirs, of course. Mantis took Loki's hand and closed her eyes, concentrating deeply. Within moments, She transcended her physical form and found herself surrounded by thousands of wispy emerald spirits. Even as they swirled around her playfully, she could feel the immense sadness they carried. "Your season has not yet ended," Mantis said reassuringly, beckoning the spirits to follow her back to the physical plane. She glanced down toward her own body, and she could see that Loki was casting another spell, opening a mystic gateway between the spiritual and corporeal realms. Soon after, Mantis had ushered all of the tiny spirits through the gateway. She returned to her own physical form. Opening her eyes, she was overjoyed to see the grand garden beginning to flourish again. Foliage was rapidly growing and spreading across the once sterile space, much to the delight of the gardener. Mantis threw her arms around Loki and embraced him, catching the god of lies off guard. "You have made amends for your fellow mortals," the gardener said. "And immortals," Loki mumbled quietly. "I shall live up to my promise and remove the seal I placed around this realm," the gardener continued. "You are free to go." "Technically, I could have left at any time I wanted," Loki mused. "With the Bifrost at my command, there is nothing that could impede my travels." "Then, why did you stay?" Mantis asked, looking deep into Loki's eyes for an answer. "Isn't it obvious, milady?" Loki asked, gracefully bowing toward Mantis, his sly smile leaving her completely unable to read his mind. "After all, I've had my eye on you since you've aided my trusty raven, Mian, on Clintar. More, however, among the 10 realms, there are a few mortals who can compel me to be honest with them. You are in their number." Mantis tried to speak, but she was overwhelmed by feelings. The feelings of thousands of plants simultaneously blooming back to life around her, and her own feelings as well. Ones she wasn't quite ready to define. Define. Loki turned to walk away, but before he departed, he handed Mantis the horn that he had broken off of his helmet earlier. "Should you need me again," Loki said, "for any reason whatsoever, this will always point the way to me, wherever I may be, no matter how far." With that, a bright burst of rainbow-colored energy engulfed Loki's form, and he was gone. Mantis carefully clutched the broken horn as she returned to the Milano. For the first time since she returned to the Collector's realm, she couldn't help but smile. But if she had witnessed what Loki had been up to while she was in the astral plane, if she had discovered what the trickster had planted in the grand garden, while both she and the gardener were distracted, Mantis's smile most certainly wouldn't last for long. "Oh, god damn you, Loki! God... Oh, here I was thinking, like, oh, it's gonna be... Like, once it was teasing with the shipping between Loki and Mantis, here I am thinking, like, oh, wow, this is gonna be really sweet and wholesome. But now, god damn it, Loki, you just couldn't. Like, you just couldn't let it go. So, Loki planted something. Apparently, the closest thing I can think is that he must have planted a seed of Yggdrasil. Because, you know, since the sap is being taken away from the tree at the moment, I don't know if it's possible to plant another Yggdrasil or not in the Marvel Comics. I certainly think it's possible, but I don't know. Like, Loki's scheming is all I can say, and god damn it, here I was thinking that maybe she got to him. Maybe she finally got to him. Oh well, I guess some things never changed. Alrighty then, that will do for this episode of Marvel Rivals. I am still gonna be fuming at you, man. Like, seriously. I hope for his lore story. I'm hoping that maybe in his final lore story and maybe in a future season with the gallery cards, maybe he does fully redeem himself and drop his plans and everything. You know, kind of do like what they did with season 2 of Loki, where he fully redeems himself. I hope that happens. Anyway, so join me next time. So what are we gonna do next time exactly? Well, I got the new roadmap of the season. Okay, so next time we are going to go into Times Square. There's a number of things. There's like there's 3 things in Times Square. There might be a 4th one. Hold on. Yeah, no, there's 3 things going on in Times Square, and we will see if we can do all 3 of them or not. So, that is it, and I will see you guys. Whoops. I will see you guys next time.